Hi, everybody. I'm with Christina Fischer. Christina is the CFO of the American Hospital Association. Christina, welcome.
Thank you.
And I understand it's a perfect day in Chicago. Is that correct?
It is lovely. It's 70 degrees and sunny in the early November, which is completely unusual for Chicago.
Yeah, it's never been like that for me when I've been in Chicago in November. So
Exactly. Well, we could use some sunshine.
there you go. Christina is going to be speaking at the CFO Masterclass next week. And Christina, you're one of the few speakers on the conference who works for a nonprofit, American Hospital Association. And, so some different challenges maybe than some of our other panelists. I'd love to get your insights on, how your company has evolved during the crisis this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Where the American Hospital Association, as you might imagine, it's been a really busy 2020. We represent America's hospitals and health systems, and we've been working really hard on one as our core mission, which is representing and serving hospitals across the country, working really hard with the administration and with Congress to get the resources our hospitals and their communities need. So that has not changed. I will say a big part of our business is in-person meetings. We do educational events, collaboration. A lot of our governance and policy making happens with masterful in-person meetings, which have been hindered significantly by the pandemic. And so we've had to pivot very quickly this year to virtual convenings, which wasn't a significant part of our business prior to 2020. And so we've had a lot of learning in the past few months about how to deliver our content, bring people together, and be effective in the virtual environment.
Yeah, that must be a huge transition. It's not dissimilar
Yes.
to what we go through. I mean, we went
Yes,
from, 250 live events to 250 virtual events. But
exactly.
culturally, I assume that's making a big impact on your company too, right?
Absolutely. And as an association, even internally, our work is largely done in teams, done collaboratively by bringing people together. It's how we do innovation. It's how we learn and develop new things. And so working in the virtual environment has been a challenge for us, even as a leadership team, and how to manage teams effectively and still deliver in an effective way. I will say our team, top to bottom, has made the pivot pretty successfully. We've learned how to be flexible with each other. Folks have children at home or other family members of one type or another, and we've all learned how to be flexible and empathetic and still get the work done. So that's been also a good learning experience that I think we will, at least to some degree, carry forward post-COVID.
Yeah, I think the situation is at least partially here to stay. So
Yep.
I've always thought CFOs of nonprofits have some really interesting challenges, even during the most prosperous of times. But you're the CFO of what, in my perspective, is a relatively large nonprofit. So can you tell a little about how your role may have changed and some of the challenges you've had to overcome this year?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, the role for all CFOs in terms of how do you manage um, resources, often scarce in one way or another. Either they're scarce because literally you have fewer dollars, or you just need to be more efficient and be more efficient all the time. How do you do that and deliver on your strategies and priorities, both externally and internally? Those are challenges that are very common to all CFOs, including those of us in nonprofits. I will say that as a mission-based organization, we certainly had to prioritize how we can continue to deliver on what is most important to our members in this really unusual situation. And how do we deliver on that in a time where we did, lose dollars related to our profitable meetings that are typically in person and are part of our business side. And so I think the unique challenge of prioritizing quickly, prioritizing in ambiguity, and doing that in a way that still delivered on our mission and our priorities was something that, again, is a challenge every year, but acutely challenging in this situation where it's very difficult to plan what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's interesting. So it's fantastic. So I know next week your panel is going to be on team development, and maybe you could give our viewers a little sneak peek of what you guys will be talking about next week.
Yes, well, I think we're going to have a really, really rich discussion. I think the challenge of CFOs across industries is very common in this particular time where we really are challenged with bringing people, process, and technology together to build the most effective team. I think that's the backdrop. But certainly, as it relates to the people, we have a multi-generational workforce, and early careerists and how they embrace technology and how they like to be developed or taught is different than those who are more seasoned and maybe on the downswing of their career. What motivates people in different generations is a challenge, and also gives managers some inputs and terms of how do they need to develop their teams. And I think that that'll be something we'll discuss. I think another really good conversation will be the balance between when do you really need to turn over or replace a particular staff member versus when you need to focus on training and development of a particular staff member. How do you do that assessment? How do we motivate and inspire folks who are motivated differently, who learn differently, who embrace technology at a different pace? And so mastering the development of our teams continues to be more and more challenging as the workforce is more and more diverse on every element of diversity. But I think at the end of the day, the context of finance teams being even more important in times of transformation, ambiguity, and difficulty in making strategic decisions, we are on the front lines of bringing forward the data and the advisory that leadership teams need. So our role to have high performing teams is even more important today than it ever has been.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And, I haven't been a CFO for a while. And, the CFOs who were, practicing their craft when I was one, they would have really struggled a lot more in this crisis than the current generation has. You guys just, the role is more strategic, it's more leadership focused, and you're definitely well positioned in prior generations of CFOs. So I think.
Well, thank you. We'll take the compliment and, and take the challenge. Certainly appreciate that.
There you go. So thanks. So that panel will be next week at the CFO Masterclass. And Christina, thanks so much for joining us today. Appreciate your insights, and we'll see you next week.
Great. Thanks a lot, Jack. Good talking to you.